and welcome to St Mary's. Whoever you are and wherever you're from, you are welcome here.
We three kings of Orient are bearing gifts, we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Born a king on Bethlehem's plain, gold I bring to crown him again. King forever, ceasing never, over us all to reign. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Frankincense to offer have I, incense owns a deity nigh, prayer and praising, all men raising, worship in God most high. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Myrrh is mine, its bitter perfume, breeze of life, of gathering gloom, sorrow sighing, bleeding, dying, sealed in the stone cold tomb. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Glorious now, behold him arise, King and God in sacrifice. Alleluia, alleluia, birth to Henry replies. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
Welcome to the online service with St Mary's Ely. You're welcome whoever you are and wherever you're from. It's great that you could join us, so thank you. I'm Paul Foster. I'm part of the wider leadership team at St Mary's, and in previous years we have journeyed through this season of Epiphany, focusing on what these powerful moments, these epiphanies, reveal about Jesus, about his identity, his mission and his glory. Epiphanies invited us to marvel at the ways in which Jesus has made himself known to the world, and to celebrate the light of his presence breaking into the darkness of the world. Now this year we want to build on that foundation and take that thinking a step further. So while we continue to reflect on Christ's revealed glory, this series invites us to consider what that revelation means for us, how we're called to respond to the glory we encounter in him. And this week we begin with the story of the Magi, or you might know them better as the wise men. And we look at their response to this revelation from God, from this star. So I'm going to read Matthew 2 verses 1 to 12, and you may want to pause the video and grab a Bible if you haven't got one already. But I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 2 verses 1 to 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who was born to be King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time that the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I may go and worship him too." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child and his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. Now, a long time ago, in a place far, far away, something was stirring. It's around 6 BC, and very brainy boffins were looking into the night sky in the east around Babylon when they saw a star which was possibly 3 planets coming into line with one another. In a time where the heavens were thought to tell of major earth-changing events, God was speaking. After weeks of looking, the boffins reached for writings a foreign people had left behind when they were released from exile there years ago. Writings which told of a star marking the birth of a king in the west, in Israel, a king who would rule the earth with justice. Perhaps Numbers chapter 24 verse 17 was one of the verses that they read. It says, "A star will come out of Jacob," that's shorthand for Israel. "A scepter will rise out of Israel." Was it true? Well, they felt that they were being invited to find out, so off they set on a journey to see if this king was real. Now that gets me thinking about who's invited to meet Jesus. Those first 2 verses of Matthew say this: After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Now I want you to imagine a grand banquet prepared with the finest dishes, decorations, inviting everyone regardless of their status, background or nationality. Jesus told a similar story. And this banquet represents the kingdom of God, where all are welcome. You see, the Magi, who were Gentile astrologers, they weren't Jews, they were Gentiles, symbolise this sort of inclusivity of God gathering all the people of the earth together. They were not part of the Jewish community yet, were drawn to Jesus, illustrating that his message and salvation are for everyone. Psalm 72 verse 10 and 11 reflects this. It says, "May the kings of Tarshish and of distant shores bring tribute to him. May the kings of Sheba and Seba present him gifts. May all kings bow down to him, and all nations serve him." Excuse me. Now, regardless of our background, our culture, our past, we're all welcome to look for and find Jesus. We can all go on this same journey of discovering Jesus and who he is. So just as the star initiated the search for the Magi for truth, you'll find that in your life somewhere God has provided a sign or an invitation, or you've started asking questions, or something's happened in each of our lives for us to embark on a journey to meet him. Now, an invitation needs to be responded to. But when we first respond, we don't always know precisely what or even who we will meet when we get there. The Magi didn't wait around for Jesus to come to them. They began their journey by looking at the visual message that they were receiving from the heavens, the hint that there was something bigger going on, something important, something much bigger than them. And probably, after what may have been weeks, they hit upon what the sign was saying, and they decided to check out if it was true, not just in theory, but by experiencing it for themselves. They didn't get everything right before they set off. After all, they assumed that a king would be born in a capital city of that kingdom, Jerusalem, in the palace that they first went to. They probably even thought that King Herod was even his father. It was all a bit sketchy, but they went with what they knew. They committed themselves to that journey, and as information presented itself, their journey changed, as it did when they learned about Bethlehem, as we'll see later on. We know now they were wrong in some things, but actually that didn't stop their enthusiasm to find out more and find this important baby, even when the circumstances didn't fit their preconceived ideas. Now I want us to just take a look for a minute at Herod's reaction and what that says about resistance to God. Excuse me. Matthew 2 verse 3 says, "When King Herod heard this, that there was going to be another king, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him." Now, of course, not everyone who meets someone searching for Jesus is going to be best pleased. King Herod the Great, known for his architectural achievements, which were massive, his political manoeuvring, which makes some of our politicians look like amateurs, was also infamous in his ruthless tactics to keep power. Now, he was born into an Idumean family, which means that Herod wasn't a Jew. He rose to power through strategic alliances, military prowess, But as I say, he wasn't actually a Jew, so that meant he was unqualified to be their king. And actually, this dogged him for the whole of his reign. His reign was marked by a constant struggle to secure his throne. It even involved deceit and violence, killing his own sons and family to eliminate any perceived threats that he thought were on the horizon. Power was his agenda, and keeping it a priority. Now, we've all met, haven't we, that small child fiercely guarding their toy and willing to share it with others. This possessiveness reflects Herod's reaction to the news of a possible rival's birth. He saw Jesus as a threat to his power and was willing to go to great lengths to eliminate him, much like a child who fears losing their prized possession. But it doesn't seem that Herod himself knew where that threat would come from. Remember, he isn't Jewish. He has no Jewish faith. He's probably not read the scriptures. What interests him is power. So he too begins a journey to find the child. And in verses 4 to 6 we see him bringing in help to find his new rival. So it says, when he had called together all the people's chief priests, people's not his, and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel. We see that even though Herod was told what God had planned, his pride and fear of not being in control persuaded him he could search for this child to carry out his own agenda. And this reminds us that sometimes we can go in search of Jesus to carry out and justify our own agenda, or confirm our own goodness or rightness. And this intensifies our pride, our fear of losing control, and solidifies our unwillingness to change, as it did for Herod. And that searching comes to a juddering halt. Now, what might a journey seeking Jesus be like for us? Well, Matthew 2 verses 7 to 8 say that then Herod called the Magi secretly, once all those people had gone, he called them in secretly, and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared, which would have been some months earlier, back in where they spotted it in Babylon. He sent them to Bethlehem because of the knowledge that he got from the religious leaders. And he said, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him. Now, I want you to imagine the Magi as explorers, a bit like Indiana Jones, looking through those dusty parchments and then venturing through unknown territories for months in search of hidden treasure. It takes some commitment. It takes real commitment. Their journey to find Jesus was long and challenging, filled with obstacles and deceit from King Herod. Similarly, our journey to find Jesus may involve challenges, doubts, sacrifices. However, like the Magi, we're called to persevere, trusting that the journey will bring us closer to that divine treasure. Commitment. See it through. Get there. And what are the challenges that we might face? Well, we may face moments of doubt and uncertainty in our spiritual journey. Moments of doubt and questions about faith can be daunting, but what they do is they offer us opportunities for deep reflection and growth. Like the Magi, we may meet obstacles and distractions, pressures from others, personal struggles, and well-meaning advice might lead us astray. It's important to stay focused on that goal and let God guide us. And the Magi made significant sacrifices to follow the star. They had significant challenges. Building a relationship with Jesus might require us to sacrifice certain habits or attitudes that hinder our spiritual growth. These sacrifices, though difficult, bring us closer to a more fulfilling and authentic relationship with Jesus, which we need. And what we need to achieve that are these several things. First of all, communication and prayer. Now, those wise men would have had lots of equipment with them. Tents, water, things to sleep on, food. They'd have gathered together lots of things for that journey. And these are the things that we need during our journey, our spiritual journey to find Jesus. Communication and prayer. Regular communication through prayer is essential because it allows us to share our joys and our concerns with Him. Builds up that relationship. Trust and surrender. Trusting Jesus with our lives and surrendering to His divine plan builds a strong relationship. It shows us that we can trust Jesus, that what He says is true, that what He says happens, the promises He makes come to fruition. And following Jesus' teaching and commandments reflects our devotion and love for Christ, so obedience and following Him, being obedient to what He calls us to do. It just brings us that much closer to God, that much closer to Jesus. And we also need community and support. The Magi travelled together. We don't know how many there were. Traditionally it's 3 because there were 3 gifts, but it might have been quite a big group. And they travelled together and gave their time in the form of that arduous journey, that 5-6 month journey. Their talents they used, they committed in using their learning and their abilities to follow a path, to follow the stars. And their treasures were given in the form of expensive gifts. Now, being part of a faith community provides support and encouragement for us on our journey, helping us to grow in our relationship with Jesus and reflect our devotion and love for Christ. Now think of our relationship with Jesus as a garden that requires regular nurturing through prayer, trust, obedience and community, leading to a flourishing spiritual life. You're more likely to complete that journey, to find Jesus, to get to know Him deeper and personally, if you commit yourself to those things. I just want to go a little bit about what does this passage tell us about who Jesus is, because this is important, because what we do is in response to this. Matthew 2 verse 11 says, on coming to the house, so we're talking a bit later now, they moved into a house, they saw the child with his mother, no longer a baby but a child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped Him. Then they opened their treasures and presented Him with gifts of gold, incense or frankincense and myrrh. Now, just as these gifts presented at a coronation symbolise the authority of a king, the gifts of the Magi, gold, frankincense and myrrh, they symbolise Jesus' identity and mission. Gold signifies His kingship, His rule over His kingdom. Frankincense signifies His divinity, because incense is what we offer up to God. And myrrh symbolises and signifies His sacrificial death. It's used to embalm a body. And these gifts highlight Jesus as the King of Kings, as fully divine, and the ultimate sacrifice for our sins. These gifts weren't given by accident. They were given because they meant something. And Micah 5 verse 2 foretells Jesus' birthplace. So it's part of a plan. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, Though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will rule over Israel, whose origins are from of old. Whose origins are from old? God's. From ancient times. This prophecy also emphasizes Jesus' divine origin and his role as the ruler of Israel. So when you find out who Jesus is, that brings about a response. Wow, this is who I'm dealing with. Fantastic. Now, what do the Magi's action teach us about inviting others on a journey? I'll just go back to verse 9 and read through to verse 11 again. As it says, after they had heard the king, that's Herod, excuse me, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. They got to the end of their journey, and they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Now the Magi's journey from first seeing the star, working out what it meant, travelling 900 miles via Herod in Jerusalem to meeting Jesus, was probably around 9 months, which incidentally is how long the conjunction of those three planets, Saturn, Jupiter and Mars, lasted in 6 BC. But notice their response to finding Jesus is one of joy and worship and then obedience. Those are responses. They're massive responses. They're life-changing responses. They'd probably not felt joy like it before, not worshipped like that before. They'd never been obedient to God before. But Jesus causes this in us when we meet him. They bow down, they worship him, they offer their treasures. This act of worship is a model for us to help others start a journey. Our response to meeting Jesus will be one of reverence, adoration and generosity when our encounter with Jesus is real, and others will notice. But why do we, or why should we, respond in worship and obedience? Several reasons. First, acknowledging his sovereignty. He's king. He's the best. He's the top dog. Worship and obedience are our ways of acknowledging Jesus' sovereignty and lordship over our lives. Recognizing his divine authority induces us to bow in reverence and submit our will to him. And when we realize Jesus is the best there is, who else would we want to introduce other people to? Then there's the expression of gratitude, because worship is an expression of our gratitude for his love, his grace, his free gift to us of love and salvation that he offers to us. Obedience is a visible way of showing our love and commitment to him. Sharing with others why we're thankful to God is a great way to get others interested in a journey to meet Jesus, especially in a world like we live in right now, where everything just seems to be falling apart and going wrong. And then there's the invitation to transformation. Journeys can transform us. In the summer, 2 friends of ours walked the Camino Trail, which, if you don't know, is a spiritual and physical journey which is 500 miles long. They were very different people at the end of that journey than at the beginning, as they had opportunities to share themselves, their faith, their enthusiasm for helping young people who they raise money for, with other pilgrims, and also other pilgrims shared their journeys with them. They lived together in community. They almost walked down the road together, bumping into people that they met every day, meeting the same people, eating with the same people, even if they didn't walk with them. but by responding in worship and obedience, we invite Jesus to transform our hearts and our lives. And notice the transformation in verse 12 of that reading, that for the first time God speaks to the Magi. And it says, and having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So when they reached that place of relationship with Jesus, God started to speak more closely to them, more intimately with them. He directed them and they obeyed out of love and out of trust. This transformation not only deepens our relationship with him, but it makes us more Christ-like in our daily actions, which draws others to ask questions about what motivates us. So just as the star led the Magi to Jesus, our actions and worship, they're going to be guiding lights for others. That's why it's really important that we mix with people, not just church people, but people out in the community, people at clubs that we go to, people in the pub that we meet, people as we walk down the street, people in the shops that we know, whoever it is, people we work with, because we become guiding lights for them. And they see something wonderful in us that they want. That's how I became a Christian. By seeing Jesus in other people and the relationship they had with them, with him. And I wanted to know where that came from, and I wanted some of that. So in conclusion, the story of the Magi's visit to Jesus, well, it's a beautiful reminder that we're all invited to look for and meet the Saviour. The journey might be challenging, but it's filled with divine purpose and guidance. Jesus' identity as King, as God, and sacrifice calls us to enter a relationship with Jesus by following him, responding with heartfelt worship, and to live lives that draw others who don't know him towards him. So let's be encouraged to continue our journey with faith, perseverance, and a spirit of worship, knowing that in Jesus, that's where our true hope is found. That's where our salvation is found. That's where our purpose is found. That's where love is found. That's where God is found. That's where life is found in all its fullness. Amen. Now, I mentioned earlier in the talk about our journey, our spiritual journey, and that we might be being spoken to by God now. We may have slipped away a little bit. Maybe we've got doubts, uncertainties, obstacles, distractions, sacrifices, challenges. And it could be that you're in a place right now where you want to either continue that journey, establish that journey with a bit more devotion, or you might even want to start that journey. And I'm going to be starting a course in a couple of weeks' time on the 14th of January called the Pilgrim Course. And it's a course for the Christian journey, to find out more, to have your questions answered, to think about life in all its fullness, to think about some of those things that I talked about: communication and prayer, trust and surrender, obedience and following, what a community and support gives to you. It's a really, really good course. It's just for about 90 minutes each Tuesday evening for 6 weeks. And if you're interested in coming along, drop an email to the church office. You can find that on the website, and just tell them that you're interested, and I will get in touch with you. Give it a go. Come on, it's really good.